All right, ICS Defender Next Gen. So we're going to talk about some of the features in here. Now, I will tell you right now, there's a ton of features that have been improved, added, or changed. A lot of them are little features. Some of them are security, patching, a lot of OS patching. So bringing it up to absolute snuff with the latest and the greatest from a security patching perspective. So I have a question. See who can answer my question. I will take hands. How much security is enough? Who can answer that question? How much security is enough? You're a customer. How much security is enough? How much do you need? There's an answer to that question.
Only as much as I can afford.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's all based on risk.
Ooh, that's right. So you're cheating a little bit because you've heard me ask this question before.
Well, I can't remember what I had for breakfast, so.
So the answer that I always give is whatever risk you can't live with is how much security you need. And that's going to vary depending on every person in the room. Rick! There's your happy ball. Somehow they light up, I'm told. But yeah, that's the key, right? Everybody's security appetite is different. Sometimes it's cost-based. That's becoming less of an issue. Sometimes it's, in-your-face risk. If you see risk, then you need to take advantage of it. A lot of people are talking about all the stuff that's happening right now and a lot of the things that are going on in the world, but it's obvious that the need for protecting our infrastructure, particularly manufacturing and our OT networks, is growing. So we're doing some things with the ICS Defender in that light. So we've got the ZFS file system. So that's a file system that is designed for reliability. It's designed for actually redundancy and RAID capabilities. I will say that none of the ICS Defenders currently have more than a single storage drive, so there's no RAID happening in there. However, with this file system, we have that capability in our larger ICS Defenders, like server-grade ICS Defenders, to put in multiple drives for RAID capability. And it's even more reliable on a single drive, but not notably so. A lot of OS security patches. A feature that nobody asked for but me is I can't tell you how many times I fire one of these up and I want to just be able to log in on the WAN side and do some administration without having to log in on the local LAN side. So now I can SSH in and hit an option on the console, and it will automatically add rules to the WAN side that allows me to ping, SSH, and manage from the WAN without actually having to log into the console to do it. I still have to log into the web page. I still have to log into the console as an admin, so I've still got all those credentials. It's just a quick and dirty.
But you can do that through the CLI, right?
There is no CLI. You can do it through the console page.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nope, no CLI. Not giving you access to that, Dave. Lots of UI and functionality fixes in the back end. Of course, asset management and DCC packages are going to be installed by default. Other things that are in this release are going to be support for VMware tools. So you can actually install a VMware tool package if you're running it on a VM. ARP monitoring. So it's kind of a cool product or a cool tool that it lets you monitor the Ethernet IP activity, and it makes and maintains a database of address pairings. And you can even configure it to report changes versus emails. So basically, if I see two devices that have been talking for a while, blah, 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 back and forth, and all of a sudden something changes in that conversation, I can know about it, okay? Bandwidth, there's some really nice new bandwidth monitoring capabilities and the ability to look at it. There's a mail reports feature, so you can have it periodically or on a schedule, send you log files or mail out certain things. Notes, you can keep notes in the ICS Defender now through the web interface. So if you log in and if you know that somebody's going to be looking at it later in the day and you want to let them know where you left off, you can literally put a note in there. It's like a Post-it, right? That lets you know what was being done.
Is that a note anywhere within the UI? Or?
No, it'll be on, it's on the dashboard. Yeah. ARP monitoring. I doubled that one up. Bandwidth graphics, mail reports. I must have just copied it. Nmap. So now you'll actually be able to, if you're an admin level user, use Nmap as a tool from within the ICS Defender. Okay, so you don't have to, if you're trying to do some diagnostics on something in Taiwan, you can actually use a tool like Nmap from the ICS Defender from Detroit, for example. Okay. One of my favorite tools is enhanced trace route replacement. So this is a tool, a feature we put in from a diagnostics perspective that it combines the functionality of a traditional trace route into ping into a single tool. So now I can see the hops. Like in this case, I use it to go to google.com. I can see the hops. I can see the lost, sent, last, average, best, worst, and the standard deviation for communication. So I can start this thing up and run it for a while. And I can see some interesting statistics as it's running while I'm trying to talk to something, right? If you think something is getting flaky or you can't talk to something periodically or it's going up and it's going down, this is a useful tool. I really liked that slide. So we've got another tool called Ntopng. Anybody ever heard of that tool? Yeah. So that's now supported. So it'll launch a completely separate graphical user interface, and it allows you to get a lot of great statistics on the traffic and on the network. So you can take a look at all the applications that are running. You can see what's talking to what. You can see the conversations, how much traffic is going through each. So in this case, you can see Amazon and Apple traffic, right, from the devices. You can do the same thing with protocols. So now you can combine protocols and source and destinations for like Facebook. You can see Facebook or Google. It will resolve all that traffic for you. So now I can look at the traffic. I can see that, oh, look, there's a lot of IMAP traffic right there. It's 5.24 gigabits, right, of traffic. And of course, it's all begin and ending. You can do it in increments. So it's a very powerful tool that's now in the arsenal of the ICS Defender to troubleshoot the network and troubleshoot activities and look at statistics and all kinds of interesting things. Again, other ways to look at the traffic. There's lots of options, right? Lots of different things. This is maybe 15% of the number of graphical options you get now for looking at what's going on the OT network. And one of my favorites is geolocating. So you can actually geolocate where the traffic's coming from. So if you're in Three Rivers, Michigan, and you see something funky hitting Taiwan or Thailand, you'll actually be able to see the conversation, right? You can see the source and endpoints. So it's kind of useful. This feature requires you to have a free or paid service that offers geomap data, right? But you can configure it. You can go get your account for free if you want to use this feature and configure it in the ICS Defender, and it will allow you to geomap traffic, okay? Another feature is Wireguard Vpn. So you're still gonna have the standard SSL VPN stuff we have now. You'll still have IPsec. If you're not familiar with Wireguard, it's somewhat new. However, it's extremely performant. So it offers performance equitable to IPsec, which is very, very, very fast. It's very, very, very secure. However, it's completely easy to set up compared to IPsec.
Stupid simple.
Yeah, I think Dave said it's stupid simple to set up. So it's kernel-based. Configuration is easy. There's no connection of concept or sessions. There's no facilities for user authentication. So this is machine to machine, conversation to conversation. It's extremely, extremely fast. It's also very, very light loading on the unit itself. So WireGuard will be an option in the next generation as well for VPN. Minimal logging, doesn't bind to blah, blah, blah. You guys can get these PowerPoints and stuff, but it's still, there's a WireGuard website. One thing that's important to note is it does not support layer 2 VPN. So if you want to do layer 2 VPN, you would still use our SSL VPN functionality, okay? Not a lot of people use layer 2, so I don't see that being a big holdup, and if they do, they still just use the SSL functionality for their VPN. One of the cool things about it is you can almost create a network of things that participate in this WireGuard network. Have you done that yet? You can actually set up 3 or 4 or 5 devices that all participate in this tunnel. and have encrypted access to each other. So it's really kind of cool. There's a lot of really cool things you can do with it. The new UI. So that's a conversation that I hope to have with some of the users. We're going to rewrite the user interface to more closely resemble the rest of our cybersecurity products. It desperately needs a facelift. We've been using the same UI more or less since we started the product way back in the day, and we kind of glommed onto that when we did, right? We just kind of kept it and made our own changes to it as we went. But it's time for a facelift. It's time for a different look and feel. It's time for better management. One of the things that we want to do is hide some of the more complex capabilities to the average user. And I say that a little tongue-in-cheek because everybody has the ability to do that right now. You can go in and create a user and give them access to absolutely or not access to absolutely every item on every line. So you can create groups of users that have access, and you can say, okay, this guy is read-only. I only want him to see the diagnostic stuff. Or within the diagnostic stuff, you can only push this button. But it seems like nobody does that. And then everybody grumps that it's a lot of options in the menus. That would be true, right? So what we're going to do, I think, is get to a lot of advanced buttons at the bottom, where normally you can see this stuff. If you want to see all the down and dirty, you might have to hit the advanced button or expand another tree. It'll probably be managed from the left side kind of thing, like most of our stuff today is. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Anybody ever had, have you seen, you're going to see some of our other products today, so you'll get an idea what I'm talking about with the UI. Right?
Look a little bit like DMC that you were showing.
It's going to look a little bit like DMC, yeah, which looks a little bit like everything else that we're doing these days, right?
I think that would be a nice change.
Yeah. Anybody got any questions? Question? Do you have a question? Yeah.
What are we doing as far as adding protocols for deep packet inspection?
So the question is, what are we doing as far as adding protocols? Right now, we have, of course, Ethernet IP, Modbus TCP, and we've made some improvements to those. We're redesigning the DPI engine a little bit, and one of the goals was going to be to make it a package. So I'm not sure if we're going to go that route with the DPI engine, but when someone wants another protocol, we'll add it. It's pretty easy for us to add protocols. So we've done some work with Profinet, but what people don't tend to realize is they don't really want Profinet per se. They think they do until I ask them, well, what is it you want to do? Well, I want to make sure you can't log into my PLC and make a change to my S7 or whatever. Okay, great. Well, that's not using Profinet. Rockwell uses Ethernet IP to talk to their PLC from their software. Siemens does not. Siemens uses their industrial Ethernet protocol. So every single person I've ever asked to, like for Profinet, for example, comes back and says, yeah, well, I say, well, what is it you want to do with it? Well, I want to keep people from making changes. That's not Profinet, because you don't configure or do stuff with that as a person over Profinet. Does that mean we won't add something like Profinet? Yeah, we probably will. But once you have this conversation with it, nobody's asking for it because they don't realize that doesn't click, right? We have some requests. We've got some water treatment facilities that have started using ICS360.Defender recently, and I thought I would see Jared here. He's from Genesee County Wastewater. They're deploying a lot of ICS360.Defenders. We've got some utilities, so we're getting some requests for some of the utilities-based protocols. We have a partner who's asking if we could do BACnet IP, which we had started doing BACnet before, so we have work in that area. So we're pretty much open to anything. It's pretty easy for us to add protocols to the engine by design. But it's really driven by customer needs, and 95% of our customers so far use Ethernet IP, and some use Modbus TCP. Right now, we're going to do the Siemens Industrial Ethernet stuff because we've got another big customer, Stellantis, who does use other PLCs here and there, and we need to be able to support that. But again, it'll be Siemens Industrial Ethernet for their use case for what they want. It's not going to be Profinet.
BJ, is that what you're seeing is broken in as median requests, or is it?
Well, I mean, with that kind of thing too, right? I mean, once again, you start talking about Ethernet, you start talking about the value of looking in, it's all about being the customer, right? So you sell them on the concept, then if they have other protocols, just keep adding to the list, I think is the right direction, right?
Yeah. And we've also discussed creating a learn mode for non-DPI type rules. Because right now we learn DPI traffic and we can create rule sets off of that. So we're toying with the idea. We've had a customer ask us, pretty large customer ask us if we could do learn mode on other stuff, like DHCP, for example. Could I learn the DHCP traffic and where all the requests come from and flag it if I see new ones, for example, stuff like that. So that's all things that we're looking at. Lots of options. Yeah.
So on that Siemens Industrial Ethernet, you were talking similar with SIP. You can have read, write based on condition on tag types. So if you're to do this with the Siemens Industrial, would you be able to set up conditionally the rules with read or read, write in the future under tag based, under block design?
Yeah, so the question was, on the Siemens side, would we be able to do it similar to what we're doing with, for example, Ethernet IP? And the short answer is yes. So, I mean, if you look at Ethernet IP, at version 28 of the Rockwell side of the business, they changed the way they encapsulate Ethernet IP packets. So we can still do DPI against that, but we can't tear that encapsulated packet apart because the symbols are not available to the protocol anymore. It's not embedded. So we can still do DPI against all of that, but we can't show you the symbols. Prior to version 28, I can tell you it's this tag in this program with this data type and 5 elements down, right? And I can pick all that out of there. Nothing we have control over, but so Siemens is kind of the same way, right? They have the 300s and 400s, which are non-tag based, right? And then you've got the newer 12s and 15s, which are tag based. So we'll have some of the same challenges with that industrial protocol where those are, where we attack that as well.
So what does the outlook look like for like version 28 plus, where you can't go as deep? Like what options are there going to be going forward? Do you have any idea?
No, I mean, it still does full DPI. We can still do it. We just can't get to the symbols to match to the packets anymore. Okay. We used to have the symbol like the tag name and where it was down it was all buried in the Ethernet IP SIP packets, but now it's not. Since they've gone to that SIP session manager concept, the irony of it is since they now actually match the spec fully, that stuff's not available. Going down the road, they're going to, they continue to talk about encrypting SIP and doing things like that. Good luck with that. My friend Gary Workman will tell you that trying to manage that kind of crap on the plant floor is going to be an absolute freaking nightmare. And the first time it causes downtime will be the last time it's ever used in a plant, right? So I will be introducing you to the concept of software-defined networking later, which solves all of those problems, okay? All right, any more questions? Cool.